So I'm John. I worked on Hiesey with Ross a while ago, and I've been working on some more stuff with WebTorrent. So just to continue on where Ross left off, what's a bit interesting about the video seeking is that unfortunately, when you normally use a browser with a video tag, you just put video source equals something, right? And when you do that, then the browser actually handles all of what's involved in getting right in front of the video. It does everything necessary to, get the metadata and get all the video data in the correct order. If you seek, it'll make HTTP range requests to the server. Unfortunately, when you don't have a real source back in the video, we use this thing called media source, which is used for like MPEG dash players, like YouTube, and I was also working on Yahoo. Unfortunately, that doesn't give you any of that, so you have to repackage MP4 file in JavaScript, and you actually have to understand the MP4 metadata, which is a bit hairy, and it still needs to work, but it's actually working remarkably well for being, something I've just been working a bit on the side on. So that's not what I really came to talk to you about today. So actually, just less than a week ago, I was at a conference. We were talking about decentralized systems, and I had this idea that, why don't we host websites on WebTorrent? So the websites themselves are distributed and they're hosted by the browser. So let's see if it works. So what I have here is I just took a static site. Let's see here. Thing. I'll forget. Anyway, so I took a static site and I just bundled it up into a torrent. And I'm using the WebTorrent seeder. So I'm going to run this. So this is actually just a demo from Angular Materials project. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this browser and load this page. And you'll notice it says it's pointing to localhost. So obviously there's a server involved somewhere. But here we go, it loaded. So we have the site, we can click around, everything pretty much works. It's fully interactive. This is just client side, so this is a site that's normally served statically. But what's interesting here is if you actually go over, this is the tab of the server, it's not even running. So how is that possible? So this was running before. I can start up the server again. And this is running on port 9100, just like you were seeing. But what's actually happening is that this tab here is creating a torrent with this info hash. And then, when I go to this page, I currently just have that info hash, which is essentially a torrent identifier, hard-coded into the page. And what happens is, it's fetched and presented in an iframe, just like normal. So you might ask, how is that possible? So I have this iframe here that fills the whole page, and it's pointing at this hash / index. The way that actually works is there's this new browser API called a service worker that lets you essentially provide something that's sort of like a proxy or a cache or a server on the client side. So what I can do is have my index file is really simple. All I do is just create this iframe, and the browser will make requests to this URL, and I can just intercept those requests. And all I have to do is I have a regex, and everything that matches this is fetched from the torrent. So what happens is I can refresh the site, and every time I hit refresh, downloads it from BitTorrent. Control-C the feeder, on the other hand, doesn't work. And it doesn't matter if the server is running or not. The server is only used once, and the browser will cache the actual code that does this. All the WebTorrent code gets permanently stored in the browser until you clear everything. So anyway, Now what we have is, it won't load, but if I go back and restart the CD, it'll be back. But what's most interesting isn't that. What's most interesting is take this, I open another tab. This could be on a different machine, of course. So this could be on hundreds of people's machines all around the world. I can load this site. Now even if I kill the server, I can refresh either of the tabs, and it'll fetch it automatically. So the site exists permanently. And if it's working, let's hope. It was working earlier.
Is it in the other tab?
I think so. Yeah, it was working earlier. Anyway, assuming it's working, there we go. It's just a little slow. I'll get working on fixing that. But anyway, you can just open as many copies of it as you want, and it'll fetch it from whoever else has it loaded. So yeah, exactly. I mean, the idea is you can make something that's, now this depends on a few centralized things. So you need someone to run the server initially, and you need someone to run the tracker. But beyond that, which hopefully will, I want to work on the DHT in the near future. So hopefully we can get rid of that. But the idea is anyone can run the server that's equivalent to my local host that hosts WebTorrent code. They don't have to store any of the data. So you can make very censorship-resistant sites, for example, or something like this. So you want to
make it as a literally a JavaScript include tag. You can include, and then you would get kind of a fallback to the BitTorrent if your server's down or you're overloaded, like the /.net.
Right. So I mean, that was kind of the idea of that was the idea of pure CDN originally, was to save on bandwidth costs. So eventually, I think what I'll do for this is make it so you can basically specify a web seed. So you can say, get it from the server if it's up, and if it's not up, it'll get it from the torrent. And then anyone can see it. Any questions? So this is just all using data channel in WebRTC to send the data.
When it builds the page in the iframe, crashing that with like app manifest or something? How do you
so the service worker can do that as well. Okay. So the service worker can actually keep track of that. So if I suppose service workers are essentially more powerful, strictly more powerful than AppCache. So they can do everything that AppCache can do, but you write the code, so you can make it do whatever you want. Yes.
Stupid question. And this is not possible. Sorry. Do you think it would be possible to use e-tools to deploy to BitTorrent? You don't have a service somewhere.
Well, I don't see why not. As long as you provide, the problem is you need to make sure something is seeding it. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So, you know, if you deploy something and then nobody can see it at all, somehow you need to, there's two things you need to do. You need to make sure it's being seeded, and you need to update it to the info cache. So somehow someone needs to know what this hash is. But that's essentially just a link that isn't very good to read.
Invalidation is totally like the responsibility of the hash, the info hash changing.
Yeah, so the info hash is basically a hash of the underlying torrent file, which then has hashes of each piece of the torrent. So essentially all of the assets in the entire site are bundled up into, you know, one giant block that constitutes the torrent, which is then sliced into pieces. And the whole thing is hashed. So it's basically a content addressable system.
So if you change one,
they have to change it. I mean, this is just something I started working on Monday. I started working on this on Monday, so it's a little bit in need of more work. Let's put it that way. But I think it's gone pretty well for, you know, a few days. So I was just going to show that I can quit Chrome and restart Chrome. The site will still be there as long as the seeder in my terminal is still up. It should load. Anyway, more questions? Yes.
I'm not too familiar with the torrent on the tracker.
point, this is specific to, so normal BitTorrent trackers don't. This is WebTorrent, and WebTorrent does. So WebTorrent, not really. Okay, so the actual NAT traversal is handled by a few parts. So the WebTorrent tracker does coordination that allows the peers, using WebSockets, allows the peers to agree on who's going to be talking to who. Then it uses a stun server and optional return server to actually facilitate the opening connections.
Okay, so all the normal stuff.
Yeah, the normal stuff is all there.
It's just WebRTC.
It just uses, yeah, it's regular WebRTC. The tracker is used, however, to negotiate the connection initially, which you need to make that work. Ideally, we could handle that with a, I don't know why that's not loading, but we can handle that with a DHT, ideally. So if you have this is something I plan to work on in the future. If you have a DHT, you can do all but the very first introduction across WebSockets, or across peer connections with WebRTC. So in other words, when I first connect, then I do need to contact someone who can introduce me to another node. Once I've introduced one node, that node can introduce me to someone else, and that node can introduce me to someone else, until I can essentially go around and connect to everyone else in the world.
Isn't that idea mindful? Like
Yeah.
using another WebRTC node as the signaling server?
Yeah, it's basically
Just
just
to other nodes.
bootstrap. Once you get it bootstrapped, then you can talk to whoever you want.
Yeah.
As long as the network is, there's some path.
Build another network on top of it.
Yeah, oh yeah, there's all sorts of